Silent Hill F is pretty unique. I want to talk about it a little bit, just kind of rambling, not too edited, because I've only just made it through my first playthrough, but I do have a lot of thoughts that I feel like I just need to get out instead of writing a script for it or overthinking it too much. I just want to talk off the cuff. I'm going to keep this conversation incredibly spoiler-free and not show any late gameplay areas because I just want to be able to talk about this for people that are unsure about the game, or maybe those that felt similar to me. And I'm not sure it's something that's going to resonate with everyone, but I do think diehard fans of the series are going to really resonate with what Konami has done here. You can absolutely say that I'm a pretty decent Silent Hill fan, and my wallet would have to agree with the statement. I mean, I was even stupid enough to camp outside my GameStop yesterday morning just to make sure I got the steelbook for this release, and can we just talk about how stupid it is that GameStop only sent mostly 2 of these to every store for everyone that pre-ordered? That's pretty f***ing insane, kind of irresponsible. I mean, I just happened to be a f***ing idiot and be there way too early. But I also saw the faces of people behind me that weren't there and didn't get one. Which is kind of a bummer if you're going to promise something to people, but hopefully the company does something to rectify that problem. So even before anyone's turned on the game, you can see just how much this series resonates with people. So to know that the series was finally getting a new installment for the first time since 2012, I was just incredibly excited. A fresh story, an original setting, a female protagonist fronting the narrative, and I was just ready for something new in a series that I absolutely adore. But I was kind of hesitant and a bit confused with all the information being released at the launch, because I just don't want them to forget what made Silent Hill so great. When it comes to horror, a lot of innovation has happened since 2012, not only in the gaming space, but in horror as a genre. So many big titles have come in and changed the way we interact with games like this. So that's kind of a lot for Silent Hill to live up to without losing its identity, and everything I was seeing before launch was maybe getting me to think that too much time had passed and they don't really care about what this game was, they just want to take the name and make something new that people will buy. But by the time I started my first playthrough, I was just so excited that I was open to the idea of them proving me wrong. Hinako is a wonderful protagonist, and I really love her journal entries and things that the game does to kind of unravel the story in ways that feel adaptive and almost make her seem almost untrustworthy as someone telling this story. How much she lets the viewer know about herself, as well as her journal, as well as what she's admitting to herself. There's something really interesting about the way they did this journal that doesn't feel like, here's what we learned now. It's actually unraveling more like a mystery. Because during the marketing over the last year, the overall vibe of the game gave almost this Fatal Frame or other horror series than something that had the DNA of Silent Hill. Not just because it's set in Japan, but there was something about it that felt really alienated and separated from the original series. The developers are saying Silent Hill is no longer a place, but a feeling, something that can overtake you. And I don't know how I agree with that, but it is pretty interesting to see them try something different and to see what else they can come up with to reinforce that idea. It's debatable which games are great in the series, which ones are flops, but you cannot deny the cultural impact of that legendary run of Silent Hill through 4. But after playing this game, I can thankfully say that for the most part, this thing is for the most part dripping in a Silent Hill feel, but it does have something that's all its own. Before I really break down any major thoughts, I do want the overall takeaway to be that regardless of this game's shortcomings, I did feel this need to keep playing. I wanted everything to unravel, and I wanted to see everything I could find. There are a ton of fantastic sequences that from a horror standpoint are going to stick out with me and I'm going to want to replay at times, but there are equally other sequences that I really hated going through. Things that felt really just repetitive and cumbersome and almost, dare I say it, kind of boring to even experience because I just knew I had to get through it to get to something I actually liked. There's so many people online saying this doesn't look like a Silent Hill game, and I think that's because the setting, as beautiful and interesting as it is, just is a little bit unmemorable compared to what we're used to with this series, as well as what we're used to design-wise and having things stand out. Like even the monsters and everything kind of blend in with the background. There's this overall muted tone to everything because of the fog, and there's just not a lot to look at because of that. Some places are a bit better with this, like the open fields are really creepy this way, but when you're deep in the city, I felt myself using the map not because I wasn't sure where to explore, but more so that things were too linear that I couldn't find anything beyond just the right answer, and there was no reason to go anywhere else but that right answer. I mean, watching the enemies die and either turn into these ashy, drifted dust or just a full-on silhouette was really haunting imagery that just painted this picture of rural Japan in a post-World War II experience, and I appreciated that it was there, but like when I stood there and thought about it for too long, it was deeply unsettling, and I think that's exactly the point the game is trying to make. If we look back at Bloober from last year's release, they kind of had a pretty easy undertaking in some regard by adapting one of the greatest horror games of all time. But they did still somehow add something to that game, gave it a sense of identity, and the combat was really fun. The cutscenes were faithful, but everything about it was just fun to play through and through. And with Silent Hill F, the creators were so insistent upon the new combat and approach of the gameplay being more like a Souls-like or something for quote-unquote younger audiences. I just feel its approach somehow falls a little flat for me, and I don't mean it's bad because every Silent Hill game has some clunkiness to the combat. This one in particular is borderline frustrating at times. Maybe the word is repetitive. I think the main reason for that is just when you start to feel like you're getting the hang of the slower combat, it clunks out on you. Something that feels unfair and not really scary, it just feels like the game had a hiccup. I've seen a lot of people describe it as, well, this game is, the combat is slow and unresponsive because you're scared, it makes you panic, make bad choices in the fights, and that's true, but also coming off Bloober's Silent Hill 2 and even something like Hollow Knight or Silksong still kind of evokes this same theory of make right choices even if it's slow because you'll panic and you'll do something bad, but all of those games are really fun to play, and this one, by the ending, I'm kind of dreading every fight that I have to get into, not because it's not fair or anything, it's just sometimes it's so repetitive it becomes unfun. Not to mention I'm clipping on everything that I walk past. I can't walk down a step unless it's level with the ground. If my shirt just clips through a building by a pixel, I'm not going anywhere. I can't dodge. I'm either forever stuck in a box or the camera is clipping through a wall and I'm in such a claustrophobic space that I can't really fight my way out of an altercation half the time. And the fact that this whole concept of you're not a badass in a fight means that you can also now dodge and do these perfect parries and all these silly things that have always been in the series but have somehow been turned up a notch to feel a little more Souls-like is a bit confusing with what the conversation around this game is. And even with the story, with the underworld, the second world, I don't know what they call it in this game, but that almost gets contradicted a little bit. I do like that weapons are something you're constantly having to keep track of with toolkits, that your health, your inventory is actually super interesting, the way there's perks and things that kind of work out and make your character stronger. But I don't really get how that's happening from a story standpoint. If all these other things about the combat are so black and white when it comes to the way that they work. There just wasn't a ton of variety, so you end up doing like 3 moves over and over again, just kind of balancing move types to enemies that aren't fully distinguished, but big metal pipe go boom boom, and I really like that. That's definitely Silent Hill for you. There's not a ton of different creatures in this game. By the end of the story, you're feeling a repetitiveness to the design. I think it's totally fair to have a sense of hesitancy if you have this dread about you because of the characters and the monsters you have to fight, but I think there's something in this one that it's not a dreadful feeling, it is a cumbersome, slowing things down kind of a feeling. And I'm sure a lot of you are watching this and thinking that kind of sounds like I don't like this game, which isn't true. There is so much that I really enjoyed. I think the characters are pretty interesting and resemble a lot of people's favorite horror titles over the last 30 years. It echoes this Silent Hill 3, Rules of Rose, Clock Tower 3 kind of narrative it's done pretty well here, but I do think the English dubbing is pretty terrible, and if you're going to play this game, I do recommend to play it with the Japanese voices and subtitles because the acting, the responsiveness, the animation, everything just goes a lot better together. There's bits that are tense and a lot of great atmosphere, but the optimization of the game kind of takes away from that. Like, I've been seeing people online actually turning off the fog to optimize the game better. All this footage is captured on my PS5, which maybe it's time to upgrade to a PS5 Pro, but who wants to do that when I have a PC? And as strange as it is to say, I found myself not wanting this game to end. I wanted to not say goodbye to it, and that's why I've started a New Game Plus. I want to see different endings. I want to see what differences I can experience, even with all these shortcomings. I can't explain it, but whatever the idea of Silent Hill is, it has a grip on me. So yeah, that's just my first thoughts. I did keep this pretty spoiler free. I don't really want to touch on the ending yet, but there's so much lore, history, and interesting stuff about this game that I would like to break down in another video, or just at least analyze and think about beyond just the surface level interaction that I had during my first playthrough. There's 5-something endings in this game, and it would be great to explore all of them. So if that's something you're interested in checking out, please leave a comment, subscribe, you know, all those silly things to ask for, but I appreciate you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.